So you clicked this video because maybe you fell off of a spiritual practice or a dedicated routine that you were either going really strong on, or maybe even just told yourself that, okay, tomorrow is going to be the day. And maybe you did one day, and then day 2 came and you're like, oh, can I do that again? So this video is for you because, hello, hi, I can 100% relate. And I want to dive into releasing that miserable layer of commitment when it comes to spiritual practices and routines, because commitment doesn't have to be miserable, but it easily can be if we allow it to be. We got the yoga toes on, we're comfortable, we're in a hoodie again, and we had a bunch of technical difficulties plus this leaf blower that I'm still processing a little bit here, but let's get into it. I want to say queen of routines. I am someone who loves routine, who just needs the stability and consistency of a routine, but I haven't always been this way by any means. I think there is so much pressure, especially online, especially on this app of YouTube and the app of Instagram and all these places where we see people living these lives and they are showcasing this routine that they do every day or these daily things that they implement. And you're like, okay, I gotta add cold showers, I gotta add enemas, I gotta add taking a morning walk, I gotta work out for at least 20 minutes when I first wake up. Especially with spiritual practices, we almost like guilt trip ourselves and feel bad if we don't do them. Like, what is that? There's that feeling of like, wow, am I really as like aware and ready and conscious as I like thought I was? Am I behind, or a lot of my peers ahead of me? Maybe I'm just not ready, you know, and just kind of spiraling into somewhat of a circle, like pattern of a cycle, I should say, of just maybe not committing to the routine, negative self-talk. You're kind of convincing yourself at that point that you're not even worthy of the routine. So it creates this really interesting pattern. I'm not going to label it any good or bad. And to just observe that is step one, I think. If there's any practice or anything that you're trying to implement into your life or build consistency with, what is the why? What is the why do you want to do it? And why do you think you haven't done it? I think those are two things to look at, to maybe examine and break down. I know for me, my why with routines is that it just feels like it sets an anchor for my day. My morning routine is one that I literally am a better human if I successfully complete it. Days where I don't, I just don't feel like, you know, I'm 100% the best human I could be. And so I also want to say in this video that routine and consistency and commitment, yeah, they all have dictionary definitions, but we all have our own definitions of them as well. And I don't say that to bypass or escape them. I just think that they might look a little different for everybody. Some people are very militant with their routines and dedication to things, but that doesn't make them more spiritual or more aware or more conscious than you. For some parts of our lives, and just going off of my experiences with breathwork and fasting and things that I'm pretty dedicated to from day to day, and just overall like health awareness, I guess you will, holistic healing. Knowing that just some days, it's just not, you're going on the path of resistance. Really, by trying and forcing. Trying is dying. You either are or you aren't. Yeah, there's just some days and some seasons even where it's just like it's just not the time for that. It's just, there's a time for being at rest. There's a time for being invigorated. Word to the Tao Te Ching, you know, there's like a time and a place for everything, I think. Granted, if you live in that and you continue to use that as an excuse and an escape, I think you know when you're doing that. I think we're fully aware as to when we're using these phrases and these spiritual quotes as reasons to remove accountability or responsibility. But I want to emphasize that if you fell off a routine, or if there is something that you were consistent with, maybe you scrolled on your phone before bed last night instead of reading, you know, little things, or maybe you woke up and got right into work instead of meditating or doing breath work. You can right now, you have the power to release that, because nothing you can do about that already happened. And you can focus on the day. You can focus on how you're spending the rest of the day, or how you're spending right now. Lingering on the past and wishing you would and should and could. Listen, we're all guilty of it, but I'm just here to remind you that it doesn't serve a purpose. You know, we can learn lessons from it. I think there's value in learning lessons from our past. It does nothing for the present. I want you to know that it's okay and that you can remove the guilt. The amount of guilt that is surrounded by spiritual practices in today's age is really scary, if I could just be honest, because I mean, I went through it. That's kind of what like caused the cycle of fasting and binge eating and breathing and then not breathing, just like missing a day, feeling bad about it, already kind of making the excuse, well, like I missed yesterday, so I'll miss today too, or just not feeling even, like I said, worthy enough to complete the next day. Yeah, that doesn't have to be the case, you know? Like if you miss a day, if you miss a week, so I think sometimes the contrast is actually kind of nice. I think sometimes experiencing what life is like without this tool or without this herb or without whatever this external thing is. And even for me, breathwork, seeing the difference and the contrast of days without breathwork really allowed me to value the days with breathwork, or even just to take note. You know, I think a lot of times really routines and practices are here to teach us, right? Even when you're not doing the routine or the practice, it's still teaching you. You can see and learn about yourself in the space of, wow, I haven't done it in 3 days. I do notice a difference. Going into this, the childhood curiosity instead of the judgy adult voice that we've, gotten so used to. Can be curious about this experience and detach from the control for a moment and just observe what you have learned about yourself in the past whatever time it's been since you fell off the routine. And I think having the awareness first really unlocks a lot, because once you start to observe and become aware, it becomes a motivation, because you're like, I'm curious about what it would be like if I did do a week on this. You start to really be interested in the learning process because you're a student of life. Why else are you doing these practices or these routines if it's not to learn and expand and grow, right? Like, I would think that's the basis of most of our spiritual practices, is to learn, expand, grow, let go of, all those things, right? Give yourself some grace and realize that contrast is necessary. There was a time last year where I think it was the span of like 2 to 3 months where I was probably only doing breathwork like twice a week. Maybe once a week. I would try, but I was just so not in the space for it. It was just not the time. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was like I wasn't on the path of least resistance. That in itself was a practice of acceptance, because it was like, but I want to do this thing. I'm committed to this thing. I'm losing control. I'm losing my connection. I'm losing all of this. I felt like there was such a lack because I couldn't commit to this practice and that I was falling off. Sometimes losing control is exactly what you need to do, like it's actually the remedy. I've been really off lately. Like maybe you've been exactly on. Maybe that too, maybe the cup is half full. And I know it's so easy to think of the lack. Like it's just, especially over years of conditioning in our brain and the way we talk to ourselves, it's just like it's almost become like a comfort zone. Like, man, I really fell off. I'm really like, I'm not as dedicated as my peers, you start comparing, or I'm not where I know I could be if I just committed. Man, I used to say all those things, and I still have days where I do, but really reminding myself that this is a journey and I'm literally a student. Like when you remind yourself that you are a student of life and you are learning, it takes away so much pressure. The idea that I even thought I had to like master something or become 100% expert in anything, kind of silly now, because like every day you're mastering and every day you're becoming more of an expert. Like everything is perfect is what I'm emphasizing. Yin and yang, always in perfect harmony. You're in the right place at the right time, always. I think a big thing I always emphasize with breath work, when people tell me they're like scared of breath work and they're scared of what's going to come up, but it's like the breath is only going to lead you to what you're ready to feel, what you're ready to release. And really, I feel like that's life. Breath is life, so one and the same. I've preached it before, but the breath just allowed so much acceptance and patience in my life, and really enjoying the process. You can trust it, but also starting to like enjoy the process and really step into observer mode, because once you do, you're just like, whoa, okay, this is all like one big dream. I can kind of just create whatever I want. If you fell off your routine, if you fell off spiritual practice, or maybe you're just really hesitant to start, this message is for you, that you can allow some grace, allow yourself to take it at your pace also. Like what is even the definition of right and wrong? We attach it to so many things and label so many things with those words, but like everything that's right could easily be perceived as wrong and vice versa. It's all a matter of perspective. Starting a foundation with spirit, aka the breath, is a great place to start, and I don't even say that just biasly. I just think that like that is the basis of living, and you can't do any spiritual practice without breathing. You can't get into tarot cards. You got to breathe while you do those. You can get into crystals, but you got to breathe while you choose the crystal. Start with the basics, really simplify it for you, and take it a day at a time. Like I said, remove any guilt. You can let it go. You can scream it away. You can write it away. Whatever you need to do to remove the guilt, because it is not necessary. I think commitment is valuable. I think discipline is super valuable, but discipline doesn't have to equal miserable. If you can relate or have anything to share on this topic, I would love to talk it up in the comments. I appreciate y'all for listening in, and I'm loving making these videos for you. So if you're loving them, you got to let me know by giving this video a thumbs up, because that's kind of the only way I know to keep making them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Peace.